Grandma is in danger. One day, my 9-year-old granddaughter suddenly said so. Normally, you'd think it was a joke. But she has a mysterious power to predict the future, and she has been right many times before. Knowing this well, I was confused. The water is dangerous, so be careful. Since then, my granddaughter has often told me so. It's okay, I'll be careful. At that moment, my son invited me to go on a trip with my grandchild and me. However, when I went there, it was right next to the sea. What awaited me from there was a shocking development. I'm 68 years old. 7 years ago, my husband passed away due to illness, and I live with my only son, CRN, and his 9-year-old granddaughter, Joanna. In fact, my son's wife was disgusted with the self-centered CRN 6 years ago and had an affair and left the house. Since then, she has been running a company and taking care of my granddaughter on behalf of busy son. I didn't want Joanna, whose mother was gone when she was only 3 years old, to feel lonely. But the good thing is that my son leaves everything about Joanna to me and always puts himself first. Even if he stays at home, he stays in his room and do what he likes, and he doesn't care about his child. That's why my heart ached every time I saw my granddaughter so lonely. One day she wanted to cheer up Chiaran, who was more frustrated than ever because the company was not doing. Joanna approached me with a twinkle in her eye. I want to make Daddy's favorite curry. Can you help, Grandma? There is no way I can refuse such a cute request of my granddaughter. Okay, let's make something really delicious and surprise Daddy. Yes. And when the curry was completed, the granddaughter, who had been waiting for her father's return, flew to him at once when his son returned. Welcome back, Daddy. You know, I made curry. You love it. I was smiling when I saw that he was excited that he would be happy, but my son's reaction was cold. Oh, can you eat such a poor thing? I'm the president. When he said that, he didn't pay attention to the curry and asked for delivery for himself. Still, Joanna tried her best to fix her father's mood. Daddy, I was at school today. Shut up, Daddy is busy. Tell you, Grandma? My son yelled at me to push her away and started fiddling with his phone. Has Daddy hate me? She muttered sadly and retreated to her room. One day when I went shopping with Joanna, she wanted a fortune-telling card. I smiled at the thought that a girl of this age must be interested in fortune-telling, and I happily bought it. Then, that evening, my granddaughter immediately began divination with cards. Grandma, I'll tell you something. Following her words, I lightly decided to ask her to tell me where my favorite brooch that I had lost was. Then, my granddaughter's fortune-telling was correct, and I found it in the inner pocket of a bag that I had not used at the time. According to Joanna, she can draw one card and intuitively understand the past and future from the pattern. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but Joanna's fortune-telling turned out to be frighteningly accurate. For example, the day before I was planning to go out to dinner with a friend. Grandma, you shouldn't go to that restaurant. Well, if Joanna says so, why don't we go to another store? The day after we had that conversation, there's a food poisoning at a restaurant that she told me not to go to. Apparently, she was awakened by an encounter with a fortune-telling card, and she wanted to use her own power to help her father. Joanna, who somehow felt that her son's company was not running well, began to fortune-telling with a more serious face than ever. And I told my son the result, thinking it was a good idea. If my dad quits the company, you can get back on your feet. However, of course, my son was very angry when he heard this. What the hell are you talking about? Joanna was terrified of her father, who was about to grab her, and she started crying. Still, the fortune-telling continued, but at some point, Joanna began to insist that I should be careful with the water and that I was in danger. What do you mean by being careful with water? I had no idea, but I decided to trust her and be cautious. One day, my son took a rare day off and said that he had booked a hotel, so the 3 of us should go on a trip. Joanna is overjoyed to be able to go out with her father for the first time in a long time. Then came the day of the trip, and as we approached the hotel, my granddaughter's expression began to cloud. While worrying about her, I arrived safely at a beautiful hotel with a view of the sea. However, while my son was checking in, Joanna hurriedly began to tell her fortune because she felt a commotion in her chest. "Grandma, don't go to the sea." My granddaughter's tone was much stronger than when she always told her the results. "Does that have anything to do with what you've been saying about being careful with water and that danger is imminent?" "Hey, I can't go home." When I was confused by the unusual atmosphere, my son came back after completing the formalities, so I decided to enter the room. However, it was only for a short time that he made a surprising proposal. "Hey, there's a famous observatory nearby that overlooks the coast, so why don't you go there?" I couldn't help but look at Joanna. "Well, I'm tired, so I'm going to stop." Joanna's words bothered me, so I decided not to go to the beach just in case. However, no matter how many times I refused, he would not back down. "If I say I don't go, I won't go." "What's the matter? Whatever you want." When I flatly refused, he was clearly disgruntled and left the room. I wonder why he invited me so persistently. His attitude was strange, and I felt uncomfortable. However, when he came back in the evening, he was in a different mood than when he left. After that, the three of us had a fun dinner and went to the hot spring, and Joanna fell asleep earlier than usual, probably because she was tired. Just as I was getting ready for bed, my son approached me with a guidebook. "Well, there's a cave near here, so why don't you go with me? When you go inside, it seems to be good for longevity, because I want my mom to live a long life." "Oh, thank you. But where is that?" Joanna fell asleep too. "It's okay. It's just around the corner. It's a cave facing the sea." What an invitation to the sea again. It was night and I was a little worried, but I wanted to believe in my son, so I decided to take the plunge and go out just in case. "Well, let's go, but I can't leave her alone for that long, so let's be back soon." "Okay, let's go." Contrary to my son's elated departing, I set off with a sense of anxiety. After walking for a while, I saw what looked like a cave, but it certainly seemed to be facing the sea. "Come on, Mom, it's here. Let's go in." My son holds out his hand. I exhaled heavily, woo, and went into the cave with him by the hand. Plash. The sound of water dripping from the ceiling creates a unique atmosphere in the cave, and my tension seems to increase unnecessarily. In the dim light, perhaps because my vision was not clear, my senses were sharpened, and I could see that the sound of the tide was approaching. It's almost there. The next moment, my son's hand is tight, and the next moment, "You've taken care of me so far." Drop dead. As soon as he said that, he shoved me with tremendous force. OMA. Suddenly, helplessly, I fell headlong into the sea. Unfortunately, Joanna's prediction came true. I was submerged in the dark night sea by my own son, and just when I was about to give up, the face of my cute granddaughter came to my mind. What will happen to Joanna when I'm gone? When I thought of this, I felt a strength welling up from the depths of my body, and I swam frantically in search of the shore. I drank seawater over and over again, and each time I almost drowned, but I managed to reach the rocky area by moving my limbs hard. Puff, puff. When I managed to adjust my breathing and calm down, a question arose. "Why did Ciaran throw me into the sea? What for? No way, money." Even though his company is not doing well, did he try to get rid of his biological parents for money? But that's the only way to think about it. How sad Joanna would be if she found out about this. I couldn't stop my body from shaking because I was cold from the seawater, and I was angry at my son. Anyway, when I started walking back to the inn, I suddenly noticed something. If I go back to the inn, Ciaran might do something to me in front of Joanna. I didn't want my granddaughter to see such an ugly father, so I decided to disappear from my son's presence. Besides, if my daughter disappeared soon after I was gone, Ciaran would be suspicious of anything. So, I thought it was unlikely that my son would do anything to Joanna right now. But for Joanna's sake, I can't leave Ciaran like this. Determined to take revenge on my son, I decided to go back to my house and wait for him. The taxi driver who picked me up was scared at first, but he didn't ask me deeply and drove me home safely. When I took a shower and calmed down, the shock and fear of being pushed down by my own son came back to me, and I was in a state of absent-mindedness for a while. In the end, I couldn't sleep that night. The next day was spent in a hurry to prepare for revenge on my son, and before he knew it, it was already past noon. When I managed to finish all the preparations, I hid at home so as not to miss the timing. After a while, I heard the front door be unlocked. I pinged her back. "Joanna, I wonder if you're okay." Just as I was worried, I heard my granddaughter crying and pleading with my son. "Hey, Daddy, let's go find Grandma one more time. The search party is looking for her right now, so I'll leave it to them." But Grandma fell from a place like that. Then. That's why I told her not to go to the sea. She couldn't stop crying at her father's soothing. Actually, I thought it would be a little later, but when I saw Joanna like that, I couldn't stand it, and as soon as the two of them entered the living room, I impulsively jumped out. "Joanna." "Grandma, you're alive. I'm glad the fortune-telling was wrong." "I'm sorry to make you worry, but rather Joanna's fortune-telling saved me. Thank you." Feeling the body heat of my granddaughter who hugged me tightly, I truly thought that I was glad that I swam at that time. "Hey, why are you alive?" I was so engrossed in Joanna that I forgot about it for a moment, but I was struck by the sight of my son staring at me with his face twitching. Yes, it was. The battle is yet to come. I calmed my granddaughter down and told her to go upstairs to her room, and after making sure she had left the room, I turned to him. "Oh, Ciaran, you're not happy that I'm alive?" "Oh, that's not true." Even though he denies it verbally, you can see that he is clearly upset. "I'll tell you how you pushed me off the cliff in the cave and I was safe." And I revealed that Joanna had previously predicted in divination, "Beware of the water, you are in." So I was training to swim with my clothes on, just in case. At that time, I also had an empty plastic bottle in my backpack to float on the water. No way. Yesterday Joanna told me that if I go to the sea, I won't be able to go home. "Yeah, ma'am, she's going to say too much." He contorted his face in disgust and bit his lower lip. "Why did you throw me, your mother, into the sea?" "I'm not doing that. Who else can push me down in a cave with only 2 people? You're the only one." "Hun, there's no evidence that I shoved you." As if he thought he couldn't prove it, he was smiling and completely reopening. "There's proof." When I said that, I showed my son the ECIC recorder and pressed the play button. "You've taken care of me so far." What I heard from there was unmistakably my son's voice. He faltered for a moment, but still refused to admit his guilt and continued to struggle. "But your voice isn't enough. How are you going to prove that you went to the cave with me?" "It's a bad idea. My voice is enough, and above all, I'm the proof." "You're the one who's going to be bad. I wish you had been dead at the time." Then I got my inheritance. At the moment when my son said this, the door to the living room opened, and my granddaughter, who was supposed to have gone to the room on the 2nd floor, walked in. "Daddy, don't do it anymore. I don't want to hear that." Joanna cried with tears in her eyes and a mixture of anger and sadness. My son still doesn't care and yells, "Go away, kid." "Please, I can't help it. I can't show her this kind of father anymore." I decided to give up on my son, who is never willing to confess. I'll leave the rest to the professionals and tell the police all the truth. "What are you talking about?" Hearing the word police, my son seemed to be impatient. He twitched his face and clung to me with tears. "Wait a minute, Mom. I'm wrong. You don't want your child to be a criminal, do you? I don't think you're my son anymore. Admit your sins and make amends." Perhaps he had finally realized my stubborn attitude, but he shrugged his shoulders and slumped back on the spot. After that, in addition to the recording of the ICIC recorder, the appearance of me and my son was shown on a number of security cameras installed on the way to the cave, which also became evidence to support the crime. According to the police investigation, the son confessed that he was stuck in the management of the company and committed this crime for the sake of inheritance. Moreover, the reason why the company put it in such a state was because my son himself had his hands on the company's funds. I was reminded that this was what Joanna meant when she said in fortune-telling that he would be able to rebuild the business if he quit the company. He will be in a cage for a while, but I hope he will reflect on what he has done and atone for his sin. Meanwhile, Joanna and I took the plunge and moved out and started a new life. Joanna doesn't do fortune telling as much anymore, but she's getting used to her new school and is doing well every day. I join a senior health gymnastics circle so that I can stay healthy for my granddaughter, and I live a lively life every day.